Well, first of all, I want to thank everyone for being here sort of late in the day. So I know how dedicated you are and how much you've been looking forward to this. Thank you for being here. And I have to admit, I am new to the Brie Hive, but I am all in. And so I'm really happy to be part of this group. And so, but in case there isn't a lot of, like a new, are there anybody who has not read this book? The series?
Stand up, it's okay.
It's okay, yes, because I'm new to this too.
We're safe here. If you have not read Legendborn, raise your hand, please. Welcome! Welcome. The Brie Hive is a good bunch. You're in good hands.
Yes. So for those who are new, can you tell us a little bit about the series and the cycle?
I can, and I'm going to do something really quickly because I realized, did I turn my phone off? Is a question that I feel like is the most embarrassing question, but I'm just gonna do it. And yep, I did. But you never know. Okay, so Legendborn is the story of Brie Matthews, who is a 16-year-old girl grieving the recent loss of her mother. She runs away from her grief to an early college program at UNC Chapel Hill. The very first night there, she encounters a mysterious demon that no one else seems to see except for one person. That person claims to be a king's mage, a Merlin. His name is Selwyn Kane, and he erases her memory, except it doesn't take. And so her memory of the evening comes back, along with a new memory, which is about the night her mother died. And so she suspects that the people who know about these demons also has something to do with her mother's death, and decides to infiltrate their secret society. And that's Legendborn.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
But we are now on book 3.
We are, yep.
And a lot has happened. But I want to go back to this Arthur part, this Arthurian legend. And I read in numerous places that Susan Cooper's books were sort of your entree into this world. Can you talk about what it was that sort of grasped you and has held on for this long?
Yes, I can. So Susan Cooper wrote a sort of a pretty seminal, important contemporary fantasy book in the world of children's literature. I think it was it's the late 70s, one of the first really contemporary fantasy YA novels that we really had. It had a big moment, and it was ALA recognized it. So the first book in the series is called Oversea Under Stone, but the most famous one is The Dark is Rising. And The Dark is Rising is about a young boy who finds himself embroiled in an ancient war that has ties to King Arthur. But that's really not the focus of the book. Really, it's about his coming of age during a certain time in Britain. And I just fell in love with it. And I think what I fell in love with was the ways in which she's talking about class, and Susan grew up in a time period where active war is going on, and so the ways in which class, family, loyalty, power, all that stuff is woven into Will, the main character's journey. In the background are elements of the Arthurian legend and other histories like the Wild Hunt. It makes an appearance and stuff like that, and Welsh history, and I just felt okay, so it's a real world, but then there's this magical layer. Which one is real at some point? Which one feels like the important thing? And it was the first time I remember thinking that a teenage character could walk in both a fantastic world and a contemporary world, and those worlds could talk to each other. And so that was just huge for me. I was enamored and raptured. I made those books my life. And I was very lucky in that I did an event for the anniversary of The Dark is Rising. And Susan attended, and I got to talk with her. She's in her 80s, and I was like, oh, this is incredible. And then at some point she's like, yeah, so that character, that's Selwyn. He's alive. And I was like, excuse me? What? Are you talking about my Selwyn? And she's like, yeah, I don't know how you're doing this. His dialogue, and I was like, did you read Legendborn? And she's, of course I read Legendborn, Tracy. So that was a full circle moment where she's read it. She loves it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I got to meet her, and we hung out. We had a meal together. It was incredible.
I read The Dark is Rising too as a young person, and then I went into The Mists of Avalon, and then so I sort of went into Arthur also more from the perspective of women from that book, and so I really loved going into Brie's story because it wasn't your typical, like, just the chosen one, and it's just good versus bad. And there's like so much more complexity to what you have brought to Bree's world. And I mean, you gave her a lot, like really, maybe too much. But we all know that. And it's just the complexity, like I said, about the contemporary issues mixed in with the 1,500 years of what the order has brought. And I was actually listening to the Reading Culture podcast. I was listening to it just the other day, and Victoria Aveyard mentioned Legendborn, and I had to write this down because it was the literal chosen one and the unchosen one together is who Bree is. But the books balance the fantastical elements with the real and making them both feel as frustrating and dangerous as each other. And I thought that really encapsulated what you just also said about Susan's books, about being in this world now as a young Black woman, but then taking on the burden of this world that she has really no connection to. And so I was immediately sucked into the world. And one of the things that I wanted to know, though, was there's a lot of Arthurian legend, and because it's the Welsh,
Yep.
but then Lancelot comes from France.
Yep.
And I just wanted to know, how did you decide which houses to, which knights to choose?
It's a great question. Thank you for asking that. The thing that I realized about, fanfic is in my bio because fanfic was a big part of my creative life growing up as a kid, and it still is something that I love because there's something about the nature of fandom, fan writers, and how they hold canon so loosely, and they hold it as a thing you can be inspired by, a thing you can play with, and they sort of treat canon as a conversation. And when I first started Legendborn and I was researching, I knew I wanted to write about Arthur. I knew he was going to be important in telling Bree's story, but I also knew that I wanted to keep him in a position of, as kind of like a device, right? And so I spoke with several medievalists because I am an academic at heart and I love research and I love talking to people. And when someone's like, oh, I have a PhD in that, I'm like, great, I don't have time to get one of those. Can you talk to me about what your specialty is? So I work with several medievalists, and the thing that kept coming up is that they also treat Arthuriana the way that I treat fanfic. Like they were like, it's not there is no single legend, there's no single Arthurian book, there's no single source of truth, there's no book that captures it all. It's been so many different authors over 1,500 years. There's oral histories, there's written ones, there's ones that have been translated. Like these things existed pre-copyright. Like there isn't a sense of ownership even. And so, you gave example of Lancelot. Lancelot's a great example. So it's a French writer who created Lancelot 600 years after the first alleged mention of an Arthur. 600 years. But where we are in time, we think of Lancelot as like the OG, like he's just there. Like he's a part, like Lancelot, you can't have Arthur without Lancelot. No, he's new. But the way in which that story is so permeable and the way in which Arthuriana just sort of gives and takes and absorbs is we are now thinking of him as a permanent feature, right? And so once I realized that, working with other medievalists, I was like, oh, so then if I just pick the parts that I want to use to tell the story that I want to tell, I'm just doing what those guys are doing. I'm doing what Tennyson did. I'm doing all of those, okay, Monmouth, I'm doing that. And the medievalists were like, yeah, that is Arthuriana. Arthuriana is using Arthur to tell the story you want to tell. And using that world and those characters and to play with your own version of those same themes. So I'm talking about who deserves to have power. How does power get passed? Is it inherited? Does the right person pull the sword? Is it, a round table? It's supposed to be all equal, except we know there's betrayals. There's love, there's romance. This is the duty for my country in a bigger mission. No, actually the right thing to do is to betray my country. There's all that stuff. And so I wanted to play in the world, but that meant that I had to do what the other Arthurian writers were doing. And most importantly, I had to tell myself that I could, right? I had to really believe that some old white dude who's got fancy editions and everyone talks about him, the Tennyson, that I could do what he did. And once I realized I could, then it became opening a drawer of all of the world of Arthuriana and saying, okay, I'm going to pick out what I need. And I'm going to pick out what I'm doing. And this, in fact, is the tradition. And so once I had that under my belt, then became easy. Then it became, well, how do I do it in my way? And I work with a Welsh consultant who's a medievalist. Like, I work with people that I really trust to help me do it in a way that feels cohesive. But ultimately, I'm just,
It's yours.
yeah, I'm just kind of owning that tradition that it's a fanfic tradition.
Yeah. I like that you're comparing it to fanfic, and that made you more comfortable even.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the experts, you had so many experts, and I was like, did you just like Google it and then email them and say, hey, I'm writing this novel, teach me some Welsh?
I mean, luckily, I went to Carolina for my master's degree and was hanging around that area even after I graduated. And I just love research, and I'm so still plugged in that a lot of people, it was like emailing a friend who knows a friend who knows a friend. And some of it was Googling, but there's great resources. Like the historian that I worked with for Legendborn got her PhD at UNC, is a Black woman, and her specialty is giving the sort of like unspoken history of the role of, really the role of like systems of power in creating our oldest universities is probably the best way of saying it. And Hillary Green is her name, and she was the perfect consultant. And it just so happened that she knew what I was working with, right? And she knew, if you've read Legendborn, then you know the history of UNC that I'm talking about. So it was really, really helpful to just kind of still be plugged in and to still be curious and to still build in the time to find the right person.
How much, because then you've made it your own, how much research, did you have to do a lot of extra research besides consulting with your experts?
Yes. Yeah.
And then when do you know to like, okay, stop, I need to actually write the story of Bree?
I mean, like, deadlines pretty much determine that. Like, I think I would still be, like, if it wasn't for that, I would probably still be researching. But, every author I know wrestles with this one. When do you stop? And I think at some point you realize, I know enough to get this character's arc down, and then I need to move on and find out how to tell that story, and that actually will determine where to go. Because you can't really treat research like I'm just loading up a just-in-case knapsack, because you will never get started,
Yeah. One of the big things, especially in Legendborn, that the theme is grief. I'm just going to sort of jump in. And I wanted to see how you took your experiences with grief and your process of understanding what grief is and how it's manifesting in you, and then putting it into a story that also includes like a medieval element to it. I don't know if anybody would necessarily be like, I have the perfect character, I have the perfect thing, and I have the perfect, and like do all of that. Like some people are just like, I'm just going to write about grief, or I'm just going to write, like a fantasy novel. And somehow you have magically and beautifully brought that into Legendborn with Bree's grief about her mother. But then that grief sort of, there's a line about like learning that grief, you can also grieve living people too. And I think she's sort of starting to discover that as the more relationships he's had and the more betrayals in her life through. How does grief affect you as a writer, I guess?
Wow. I mean, so I think a lot of our stories are actually about grief. Like if I really, like the more I'm in this world, the more I'm professionally writing and speaking with authors and sort of looking at other stories from a position of a craft composer, but also somebody who appreciates them. I'm like, oh, so that's about grief. That's about grief. That's like grief really is so much in the fabric and in the atmosphere of a lot of stories. And I'm not talking about like specifically I lost someone. It's I could lose someone. I could lose a thing. I know my life, it could be over. I could, like grief just shows up in all these myriad ways. So I think it's just there in the bones of the work in a lot of ways for stories that are very compelling. But I also think as the writer who's been in the world for the Legendborn cycle, like since it published, grief shows up in my signing lines. Like grief shows up when people are they want to share a moment with me. And it's been fascinating to watch how my grief has changed being a public figure who wrote a very successful book about grief, because my own understanding of my loss has shifted. The more I talk about it, the more readers talk to me about it, the more I hear about other people wrestling with similar things. And there's a preciousness in what gets shared sometimes in a signing line, where people will say things that are very quite raw. And sometimes I can't always hold it, but other times I'm like, no, I got that. Actually, I can hold that. And like, I hear you. And like, yes, and like just give a moment of validation. So there's an interesting like role that I'm in, and I'm trying to figure out how to protect myself as the author of the books. But I also recognize that like the book is inviting. It's so invitational. It's so to the bone about grief. I had never seen a book that could capture the complexities of not just being sad. So much of grief writing is like, I'm just sad. And it's like, no, you're angry, you're guilty. Then when you laugh, the laugh is really very good, and you're worried that the laugh is too good. Like, it's like that type of stuff.
Yeah, like you question everything going forward.
Yeah.
And you wrote in your author's note that it was really important for you to recognize that kind of grief, especially that young people are experiencing grief, and to let them know that it's okay and that you do see them. And I saw that in Bree too. Like, she didn't want someone to say like, I'm so sorry for your loss. It was just like, I know it's not just the sadness, it is the anger, all of that complexity in it. So that, and sadly, it is what a lot of young people do grapple with. And I'm glad that you have given them like a safe space to be like, oh, it's okay for me to feel that way.
Yeah.
And
I also, well, sorry.
No, just and to also laugh sometimes. That it's okay, and to continue to love and all of that. I think that's really important.
Yeah, there's something you just said about Bree, like the quality of her grief in particular, from a craft perspective. This is about a little bit nerdy if you're a writer, but I realized something that was really critical for me, and what I think helps people connect to Bree is that her grief is actually it's the engine for every plot point in that book. And I really wanted her grief, her emotional state, her feelings, her agency to be validated by the book itself. So there would be no Legendborn if Bree was not grieving in the way that she's grieving, and if she wasn't making decisions from that place. And I think that's the other part that is frustrating, is like, if you're grieving and you're out in the world and it's inconvenient for someone, then they may or may not validate the decisions that you make from your grief. And the whole book is validating her grief, because the whole story, literally the thing that she achieves by the end of the book, would not happen if Bree wasn't sad, angry, reckless, frustrated, impassioned, fearful of losing someone, also like pushed to the point of like, I'm willing to do anything to protect the next person. Like, all of the book hinges on her grief being as complicated as it can be.
Yeah, and it is complicated.
It is. Grief is complicated.
And you touched on, like, and she's also a teenager. Like, I forget that she starts off, she's 16 years old. And it's already so hard to be a teenager. How do you tap into just being a regular old teenager and all of the recklessness, the passion, and then sometimes the selfishness of it, and then you're like, okay, authentic teenager, and then give her some more, just throw lots and lots and lots of stuff at her. Yeah,
that is the book. That's how I write it.
How do you just think about yourself as 16, 17 years old?
I do, to some degree. I mean, I think a lot of writing for young people, I think part of my work is preserving the kernel of myself that is a 16, 17-year-old, and just like keeping her somewhat safe and finding out how to hold her and keep her there. But I think that how I feel about writing for young people is that teenagers, there's so many emotions that go into growing up, and teenagers so get invalidated for their emotions all the time. And I think the job and the trick is to treat all of the emotions as if they're extremely valid and as materially impactful to the world as, say, I don't know, a secret society wants to recruit you. Okay, well, I'm sad today and I can't possibly do anything. And rather than going through life or that day invalidating my sadness or trying to work past it or trying to diminish it or let someone else tell me I shouldn't feel that way, like actually just sit with it and like own that. And I think teenagers don't get that as much because it's a lot of like, well, you'll know more when you're older, or when you're later, you'll think this. It's like, okay, well, I'm not later, I'm here. Like, I'm here and now. And so I think that's the trick for me.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that. I have had teenagers in my life, my own children. And so sometimes with Bree, like, oh, I totally get that. And other times as a mom, I'm like, Bree, why are you doing that?
I know.
So I think that's totally, you have made her very real. It's like you have totally
I know, it's
captured
so
her.
interesting. And like adult readers will be like, oh, she's acting like such a teenager. And I'm like, yeah. Yep, you got it. Like I can't, like I'm not sure what to say. Or if it's, I wish she was making better decisions, and I'm like, then there would be no book.
Right.
If you would like the good decision AU of Legendborn, the alternate universe where Bree makes all the good decisions, it would literally stop. It wouldn't even, she wouldn't go to the cliff at the beginning in chapter 1. Yeah. Like you would just be, we would be sitting at home looking at Bree and she'd be sitting across from you and it would just be all looking at each other in a room.
Yeah.
No book.
That is not a New York Times bestseller.
No, that is a meditation.
I wanted to go to Oathbound, and in the acknowledgments, you said that it's the book the Legendborn Cycle series needed, but not a book I originally planned to write. Elaborate.
Yes. So interesting. Okay, so I've noticed some misconceptions, like when I've talked about this, or readers are like, oh, Oathbound wasn't originally going to be in the Legendborn Cycle, and so they might assume that like it was the ending, and then the next book is the extra, and it's like, no, the ending is the ending. But I think of a story as, I think of it divorced from its page count. Okay, so like the story of the Legendborn Cycle is something that I've had in my head a long time, and I've had it in my head since 2017 in the way that would be recognizable to you. So it's a story. How many pages it takes to tell that story is a different thing that has to do with making this into a book that I can share with other people. And so what happened was I got to the end of, really in some ways Legendborn, but definitely Bloodmarked, and starting the first draft, I think, of Bloodmarked. And my editor at the time was like, because I have a synopsis for all 3 books originally, and the editor was like, well, can you really get through this? To get to that part of the story, are you really going to need just one more book? And so that was a conversation we were having, and it was really accurate. Like I said, actually no. There is a emotional development in Bree that I don't have the runway to do in order to land the ending. And so I always knew that elements of Oathbound had to happen. It's just I was going to try and do them in one book, and then I realized, no, that's going to be, you're not going to give her the runway, you're not going to give her the space. These other characters also need to be in a different place. So it was more just like I wanted them to, originally I figured they'd be here, and then I'd have another book, and then we would just go like this. But actually I needed to step them up. I needed to give them more time to get to the place and to give more. So I added scenes, but the arcs, Bree's in particular, is exactly the same. We just needed more pages to do it. Yeah.
All right, so does that mean you knew the entire arc beginning to finale in your head before you started writing?
I knew
of the whole cycle.
When I was mostly done with the first draft of Legendborn, I knew a lot of the big core moments that we would need to hit to end it. And I knew how I wanted Bree, I knew the feeling of the ending. I knew how I wanted Bree to feel. Like I knew how I wanted the reader to feel about Bree. And I knew that like what the climactic moment would require, plot-wise, character-wise. And I knew Bree's arc to get there.
Did you already have a spreadsheet back then to get that started?
I had a synopsis, but I think I did have a spreadsheet. I always have a spreadsheet.
I also love spreadsheets.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. Also, like it must, because there's so much in there, not just about Bree and the other characters, but like the whole lineage. And so I can see why a spreadsheet and many tabs on that spreadsheet would be really, really helpful. Let's see, what else did I? Oh, so Oathbound, POV changes.
Yes.
Which
Yes.
is not how it was before.
No.
What was that like? Oh, this is something that you just decided on, or it was where you kind of sucker punched us and like, oh, we get to hear from somebody else.
Yeah, so that is something that absolutely was not on my radar when I started Legendborn. In my head, I was like, I am going to write a YA fantasy trilogy because I haven't seen one done in this way before, and I'm going to do it where a black girl is at the lead, and it's contemporary fantasy, and we're always going to be in her POV, and we're never going to leave. And that was what Tracy said in 2017. And I tend to I don't make a ton of declarations. That's not a lie. I make a lot of declarations. I was going to lie to you, but that's not true. No, I make a lot of declarations, but like there are some that feel like really resolute, and there's a value attached to it. And the importance there was that I had not seen a girl, like a black girl in that role, be centered the whole way through, because the media and narrative spaces often decenter us really quickly, right? And so I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm going to commit. Well, what I realized at some point, namely the ending of Bloodmarked, was that I was like, okay, I didn't really set her up to be the central storytelling figure the entire time in this next. So I think I'm gonna have to do POV changes. I'm not a big fan of multi-POV, generally speaking, because I love if you've read my books, it's not a dig on other authors, it's because I love being super immersed in like a single POV. I love writing from that place that feels like pre-thought, that like you're so intimate and you're so like, there's Bree's, mental landscape is like fractured sentences. Like she's not always fully a put together person. And so I wanted to stay there. But what I realized is that declaration that I made in 2017 was actually a declaration about centering Bree. And that just because I'm moving POVs, I could do that in such a way where she still is the center. And so that's how the POVs, if you've read Oathbound, like that's how the POVs became workable to me. It's because I had to always locate. So at the top of every chapter, you are relocated. Yeah. But Bree is still the center. She's the gravity. Yeah.
Is that how you chose whose POV it would be? Because sometimes I felt like, oh, it was a little bit unexpected. Sometimes when you have a POV change, it's like you have your three main characters, and those are the only people you hear from. But your POV changes, they weren't necessarily the main, like Mariah. Like she's a wonderful character, but she's a supporting character.
Yes. I think I chose the people that I chose because I needed to be able to communicate to myself, to Bree, to the reader even, the breadth of her impact. And there are perspectives on the Order, on Rootcraft. There are perspectives that we were not going to get if we stuck with sort of secondary leads, right? Like we weren't like, people have been like, yeah, we could have had a Cell POV. And I'm like, well, but like what I needed you to know about Cell is not something that he was able to communicate to you, right? So I wanted to go to Mariah because Mariah is in a great position to tell you about, Rootcraft, and she also has the most growth potential as an arc. So that would keep me interested as a writer, and I knew I needed her, right? So I was trying to go for what is the story and also I love surprising people.
Yeah.
Like we're writing this book and my team, my agent, we're reading and we're like, no one's gonna guess this lineup.
Yeah, no, it was true.
Like,
I didn't.
They're not gonna, but so I chose it first, but it was just sort of like a very satisfying thing of like, haha, nobody's gonna guess. No one's gonna guess all these people,
So as you're thinking and like ruminating, is this morning, noon, late at night? Like what is your writing routine, schedule? Are you pretty strict about it?
I can be. It depends on the phase of the work. So I think my favorite time to write is the morning, because if you catch yourself early enough, your sensor is still asleep. And so like if you do it in this there's like a window of time where your censorship brain or your like potentially hesitation, should I write this brain, is like still asleep. Prefrontal cortex is like, and then you can just sort of like go. And so I love that moment, but also, gosh, I love a late night session when the world is quiet.
So 2017 is when you started.
Yeah.
And what is like sort of the timeline of how long each book is taking you? Is it getting easier? I'm guessing no, but I have to ask.
I love this question because I feel like it's one of the ones, like, my readers are very smart. And so it'll be like, don't ask her when book 4 is coming. Ask her how long these other books, and then
Math
the
and
math. But so the answer. I mean, Legendborn was brewing for a decade before I wrote it. In the world, Bree as a character, she existed as an image of a girl who could go on this impossible type of journey of like facing her grief and getting an answer, something that we as human beings can't do. We can't go on a quest and figure out why when we lose someone. So I knew that I wanted to do that, but I didn't have the ability or the time. I was living my life and working and whatever. So it was like a decade. And then I wrote. And so if you think about it in that way, it's quite a long time. In terms of word on the page to where I think we're ready to go to the printer, that was 2.5 years, somewhere in that, Bloodmarked was similar. Oathbound in some ways similar, because the time, let's just say this, like the time from my conception of a book to the time it publishes, it's not always my thing that I can control.
That's true.
Right? Like we're making a book-shaped product that y'all are going to get to hold in your hand, and that is a different process than like a story process, right? So some of it's not in my control, but it's really like 2.5 years.
Okay, well, you guys know how to do math. Let's see, I wanted to ask about, being part of the Bree Hive. Because I was new to this, I went onto the internet, and of course there's a wiki, and there was beautiful fan art, and then I went on to like Instagram, and more fan art.
Yeah.
And that must be kind of surreal and special, and right, like to think that there are people out there who are thinking so very hard about your characters and loving them and like pouring their creativity into that art. And then I started thinking, well, there must be fanfic, which I haven't read yet. But then I heard on a podcast, you are not legally allowed to read fanfic. Is that right? So it's the art that you...
It's so tragic, right?
Yeah, it is.
It's a tragic irony for me in particular.
Right. Well,
it's quite sad.
Yes. I understand the technicalities of all of that stuff.
But please continue forth.
Yes. Yes.
It is. As a fangirl, like I was raised by a woman who's a fangirl. I was raised, on Star Wars and Star Trek and the what ifs of fandom and getting to play. And so seeing readers and seeing the Bree Hive form in real time and seeing readers make stuff, whether it's like a costume or they take a quote and turn it into a tattoo, or they draw art or what have you. It's incredible. It doesn't get old. I hope it never gets old. I hope I never get used to it. It's an honor. Because that's sort of like reactive artistry. Honestly, it's like taking a story in, taking characters in, and letting them live inside you, and then generating something out of that place. It's incredible.
Yeah, it really made me think that fans and nerddom, is like they are the biggest advocates and believers in storytelling.
Yes.
And so that's amazing to have that and to put that out into the world, and then they put that out into the world. And I just feel like, gosh, us nerds, we're probably really empathetic because we like taking your characters and love them, and sometimes we hate them, but we have emotions around that. And I think that's the magical thing about books and storytelling.
Yes.
And so thank you for giving us that.
Thank you. Thank the fans.
Yes.
I love when people are like, oh, Bree, they're like, oh, that's my little sister. Or they're like, that's my baby cousin. Like there's so much in the Bree Hive, like a feeling of family or ownership, or just like even when a character does something annoying, having readers be like, oh my gosh. Oh, nephew makes it really hard to love him. But like there's just a familial feeling that I think is really precious, you know.
Yeah. And that means like your characters are realistic. Like
Yeah.
yeah. Yep. Okay, going back to that you are second gen fangirl.
Yes.
Tell me more about the first gen, like your mother.
Yeah.
And how did she get into it, and how did she support and give that to you?
Oh, that's such a sweet question. Thank you. So my mom grew up with an older brother who was really into science fiction, and so she's a nerd and she's a scientist. So she grew up on like original Uncanny X-Men, and introduced me to Dune, and I stole the original Dune copy she had off her shelf. She was really into Star Wars and Star Trek, like I said. She has like a book of like the original Ralph McQuarrie Star Wars concept sketches that is just the most precious thing, that she wouldn't let us look at it too much. Herself even, this is how you know she's a fangirl, was like, we can't look at it but so much. And then there would be like, do you want to look at the Ralph McQuarrie Star Wars concept art with me? And then we would make it like, it would be like a ceremony, like, okay, look at this, and then put it back, make it safe, put it away for the next time you enjoy it, right? So like, I really got it quite honest. She, if I ever got in trouble, I couldn't watch TV except for Star Trek or the news. She was like, you can be informed about the world or watch Jean-Luc Picard. That is all. Nothing fun. You can also read books. You know, like it was so threaded throughout being a single mom and being an only child. It was really us too. So I feel like she would, I think she'd be thrilled with this. She'd be like, this is amazing. She would be Beehive secretary, president.
Yeah, I actually did not grow up with Star Wars, but my husband did, and so we have the trilogy, the original trilogy on VHS, and it is in a box, and like we're not supposed to touch it, but even if we don't have we do have a VHS player, but like you don't touch it. It's just for looking and saving, and so I totally understand that sort of ritual to it. And we did impart that to our children, and I'm really happy that it's now, I don't like to use the word acceptable, but it's just part of our daily lives to be fanning on something. And anime is like, I'm just Japanese, and so I grew up reading manga, and my parents never said, don't do that, because they were also reading it, and so culturally that wasn't, at the time, like really well known, but I have been doing this like for 45 years, and I want to give it to my children. So all of you people who are nerds and have a love, just keep spreading it. And I wanted to also ask about, going to Star Wars. Who is your favorite? Do you have a favorite Star Wars character?
This changes pretty regularly. I think right now I'm in my Leia era. Yeah, there's something, and really it's Carrie as Leia.
Yeah.
You know, like it's very specifically that character. I quite love thinking about that whole arc and what she was capable of, especially if you've read any of the books. But there's something really lovely about her portrayal of being a princess that was just game changing, I think, for a lot of folks.
Yeah, that's true. Like, depending on the phase of your life, like you have realizations about. Yeah. Okay, so that was actually part of my lightning round question.
Oh yeah,
so
we're gonna close out with the lightning round.
All right. Your favorite knight of the round table, or on the legend. Right now. We'll just say favorite right now.
I can't say that in this room.
Oh, okay.
And I thought about this. I was like, can I ever? And I just don't think I can.
All right. Well.
But I do. I think there's. I think there's variations of stories that I love for a lot of different nights. That's what I'll say. Yeah.
Okay. Mine's William, by the way. Just saying.
Oh, you meant my characters.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant like the old school. Oh, mine.
Yeah.
Oh, I also can't say that.
I didn't think so. Yeah, I don't think so.
I was like, that's so sweet. No, I like William too. He's wonderful. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if then you can answer this one. Team Sal or Team Nick?
The recklessness.
I'm new to
Bree.
this, so.
I'm Team Bree. That's the only answer.
Okay, 100%.
And if we're quite honest, both of those boys are Team Bree too.
Yes, which is why we love them. Yes. Okay. Just in general, do you have a book that or movie or something that you are like, ooh, like really loving, and you want to share with your readers?
So I am reading a couple different things, that are like manga-wise, but like I really started diving heavier into anime this past spring, and I discovered this one called Sakamoto Days.
Oh yes.
And I just started it, so I don't spoil me, and I haven't read the manga, and I don't know where it goes, but I just love that character, and I love that it's both a slice of life and a mystery and an action, and I just kind of needed all of that.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
I like it too.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Along those lines, like sort of your lifelong, like this is for life. Like, what is the thing that you love?
For life.
Yeah.
That's really hard. For life? Gosh, I don't even know if I could tell you. There isn't really, I think anime as a genre is actually for life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my for life.
As
a medium,
yeah.
It's not even a genre, as a medium with many, many genres, but just like the entire form.
Yeah, and I think we live in a nice age where it's like so easy to get now.
So nice.
Yes, so nice. Okay. While you write, what is your favorite snack or drink?
I love anything with ginger. It just keeps my senses tingly. So lemon ginger tea, like from William. That was literally what I was drinking when I was writing that character, but it's also what I love.
Okay, and my last question, because I love office supplies, what is your favorite office supply?
I love this. So the Jetstream ballpoint black pen. I just love a ballpoint black pen that's very smooth. I love small notebooks that are college lined. Particularly with rings, so I can do them flat. That makes me very, very happy. And then I am a big fan of lined sticky notes. Like, I like a sticky note, but the blank ones feel chaotic to me, and so I need a lined sticky note. And that's I'm a list girl. Yeah.
All right, everybody go out and buy your pens and line notebooks.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you, everyone.
And in the Bree Hive.